Ladies and gentlemen, we have the first criminal charge of the Durham probe. Unlike the Mueller probe that focused on everything other than what people were accused of doing. So the Mueller probe did not indict anyone, not one person, not one charge associated with working alongside or conspiring with Russian intelligence officers to interfere in the election. They didn't get anything regarding that because they fabricated that whole entire narrative. So they had to get people on lying to FBI agents. Now we find out that all the agents who were conducting the investigations prior to the Mueller probe, and almost certainly during that probe, set up and framed President Trump and everyone around him. We know this. We know this without a shadow of a doubt from today. Kevin Clinesmith, one of the, and this surprised me. I was expecting indictments and guilty pleas after the election. So I always knew that justice would eventually come. President Trump's going to win re-election, but it was just a matter of when. But this is fantastic. So William Barr, this is fantastic. Let's just read George Papadopoulos. I want to read George Papadopoulos's profile first. He was the one set up by Kevin Clinesmith. And I want to read you this. This is fantastic. So, he writes, this is Chuck, okay, so Chuck Ross, AG Barr says development imminent in Durham probe. That was, of course, yesterday. And George Papadopoulos, Clinesmith tried setting me up, and now due to his own deception got indicted and had to plead guilty. He will be the first of many. Character is fate, which is true. That's why Clinton eventually will be nominee. I don't know how it's going to happen, but character, you don't change who you are as, like, you can change your political viewpoints. Like, for example, if you find out all the Democratic Party does is cheat and lie about its alleged value system and doesn't, let's just say, when I was on the far left, I said, I want Americans being brought home from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts. Democrats obviously don't care. I thought they did. I thought that the left would care. The left doesn't care at all. President Trump cares. So now I'm voting for President Trump. You can change your... And so we've seen what he's done recently with landmark, historic peace deals. And then there was one in February to bring home Americans, eventually bring home Americans, and reverse 20 years of failed U.S. foreign policy from our longest-running military conflict. You can change your political viewpoints, but you don't change if you have this unbridled quest for influence and power within you. It ain't going to change. That's who you are. So Clinton eventually will be nominated. I don't know how, but here, even spiders get caught in their own tangled web of deceit. Kevin Clinesmith was the person who doctored up and basically wrote all the false information within the FISA applications to get Carter Page, and then tried to set up George Papadopoulos. He was a part of setting up and framing George Papadopoulos. But here, when I was one of 4 witnesses invited to testify to the House Oversight Committee along with the Yates, Comey, and Lynch, I knew my testimony was critical to unlocking the spying. Today marks the first domino against corruption. We will come out stronger than ever as a country. George Papadopoulos. Kevin Clinesmith, so looks like I was right back in 2019. He wrote this. Kevin Clinesmith, the high-ranking official from the FBI currently under criminal investigation, interviewed me in such a bizarre manner that I would not be surprised if there was a charge coming for him. Read my book and understand why he's the first domino. So George Papadopoulos called this in 2019, and I have read his book, and it's fantastic, and he did say that. George Papadopoulos, Clinesmith tried setting me up, and now due to his own deception got indicted and had to plead guilty. He shall be the first of many, so I just read that. Okay, so so that is very, very, very interesting. Let's look at what Paul Sperry is saying. Durham in charging doc confirms Confirmed story that FBI used rarely prosecuted regulations to spearhead offensive against Trump. On July 31st, 2016, the FBI opened a Foreign Agents Registration Act investigation known as Crossfire Hurricane. So, of course, they used a rarely prosecuted. See, with Clinton, it was, there was no intent there. But with Trump, it's, gosh, is there anything in the legal statutes we can go to get this guy? Anything! Brandon Comey and other high-level witnesses will be, this is Paul Sperry, Brandon Comey and other high-level witnesses will be loath to mislead or be less than candid with Durham investigators, prosecutors, in interviews now that they know Clinesmith's been cooperating with Durham's team. Yeah, remember when they were like, oh, he's going to flip and sing? There was nothing for Manafort or anyone to flip and sing about. Manafort committed crimes that had nothing to do with the Mueller probe 10 years prior, and they were financial crimes. So Roger Stone had when you talk about everyone who was indicted, they were indicted on process crimes for the Mueller probe. Process crimes are, you didn't tell the whole truth, or you misled Congress, or you tried to tamper with witnesses. But if you are being set up and framed and you're innocent of what they're initially accusing you of, or the allegation, if you're innocent of the allegations they're accusing you of, then if they get you on any other charge pertaining to the legal campaign against you, that's basically another form of entrapment. It would be the equivalent of you getting stopped for you weren't speeding, but you getting stopped, and then the police, what was it like? What was it, Smokey the Bandit or Cannonball Run? I forgot which one, but the police officer taking a baton and then bashing the headlights and saying, "Gosh, you have to, there's a ticket here for that," and planting evidence. It's not exactly like that, but you know what I mean. What they did was simply get people on purely process crimes. It had nothing to do with the actual allegation, but we'll just continue. If the FBI says you've been working with Russia, and you say, no, I haven't, and then they interview you, or they interrogate you, and they say, well, did you ever speak to that professor at your college? And then you say, gosh, I haven't in months. I haven't in a long time, and it was a month and a half ago. You've lied to an FBI official. You're going to jail. So that's the analogy. That's what they've done. And then they say, well, why did you lie? Well, you obviously had something to lie about. The litany of why did Madam Secretary say that it was for convenience? Why did she initially say that there was nothing? There was no classified information. Nothing sent or received that was marked classified. Comey found out that all of that was true. According to Comey, Attorney General Loretta Lynch stated that he should call it a matter. Well, who's telling the truth there? Someone's committing perjury, because Attorney General Loretta Lynch stated under oath that she is that she never told Comey to call the criminal investigation into Clinton's email servers a matter. And Comey said under oath that she did tell him to call it a matter. So who's telling the truth? But anyway, here, Brennan, this is Paul Sperry, Brennan Comey and other high-level witnesses will be loath to mislead or be less than candid with Durham investigators, with investigative prosecutors in interviews now that they know Clinesmith's been cooperating with Durham's team. They don't know what Clinesmith has told Durham and could fall into a perjury trap. That is the issue here, and in my long-winded way, I was trying to explain. The process crimes that the Mueller probe was a complete farce, charade, racket. That it was predicated upon. It was predicated upon a dossier purchased by Clinton. The dossier purchased by Clinton was nonsense. That's why I find it very difficult to believe that. So that's why Biden will not be debating President Trump, because they have something up their sleeves. They've engaged in the activity that they've engaged in has been far too insidious, and it is linked to too many, extremely powerful and influential people in the United States government for me to believe that just simply Biden will be nominee. But here, I don't care if he even accepts the nomination. The whole thing's a charade anyway. The DNC, this is another thing. The DNC attorney in court stated that they don't even need a primary. They can just go ahead and pick their nominee in smoke-filled back rooms. Well, where in the DNC does it say that it's impossible to change the nominee after the nomination? It's not even a real convention anyway. It's basically a glorified Zoom conference. Former FBI lawyer expected to plead guilty in altering email on Trump aide surveillance. So attorney Kevin Clinesmith worked with agents on surveillance warrants against Carter Page. Washington, a former FBI lawyer is expected to plead guilty on a charge of altering documents used to seek the continued surveillance of a former Trump campaign advisor, the first criminal charge stemming from a long-running review of the actions investigators who worked on the politically charged of the actions of investigators who worked on the politically charged probe. Kevin Clinesmith, the attorney who worked with the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation agents on some of the surveillance warrants against the one-time foreign policy advisor Carter Page, will plead guilty to false statement charge involving an email, according to documents filed in federal court Friday. Mr. Page was the subject of a warrant under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Mr. Page was never charged with a crime. Kevin deeply regrets having altered the email. It was never his intent to mislead the court. Okay, here we go. Mr. Clinesmith, lawyer. Of course it was his intent. It was never an intent to mislead the court or his colleagues, as he believed the information he relayed was accurate. But Kevin understands what he did wrong and accepts responsibility. There's obviously more to this. So the questions that he's being asked now, so the issue is the perjury trap, which basically relates directly to their behavior, but they can get Comey. Strzok is the one who's next in line. If Kevin Clinesmith opens his mouth, or they ask Kevin Clinesmith the right questions, because Comey and Brennan and Clapper are way high up. So we have Strzok saying, we'll stop Trump. They can simply ask Kevin Clinesmith, did you work with Peter Strzok? Did he have a bias against? Did you know of any bias he had against, Mr. Trump or anybody else? But I mean, there's a million questions they can ask. The charge was brought by John Durham. The Connecticut prosecutor was tapped last year. So lying to the judge even about one statement to set up somebody else is a big deal. They probably have a whole bunch of charges against a great number of people, including Strzok and McCabe and Comey and Clapper and Brennan. But they got him on misleading the court and falsifying a document as an FBI attorney. That is a huge deal. Why would you have to do that if indeed you had information that Trump was working with Russia? He wasn't working with Russia. That's absurd. We don't know anyone who thinks that Russia interfered in the election is the biggest imbecile and buffoon on the planet if they can't name one Facebook ad and explain how this Facebook ad and the graphics and the images and the words within the Facebook ad influenced voters in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If you can't do that, then you're just regurgitating like a mindless zombie intelligence community nonsense. The intel community has never been this front and center in terms of American politics. You can look at J. Edgar Hoover and you can look at intelligence with WMD, and you can look at, so we've had this wonderful intelligence community get us into never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts, and we've had people, who possessed the goods or leverage on politicians, but we've never had a political party, the Democratic Party, rest their entire hopes for 2020 upon the words of Comey, Clapper, Brennan, people like Comey, Clapper, Brennan, McCabe, So the DNC, the Democratic Party, utilized these corrupt officials and then they impeached Trump based on more gossip and nonsense from people within his administration who suddenly rose up against Trump the authoritarian. Well, if he's an authoritarian, how many authoritarians are set up and framed? How many authoritarians are set up and framed by the government that they're supposed to lead? How many authoritarians are impeached because a bunch of scholars and academics believe a couple people within Trump's administration who said, well, he really wanted to leverage Ukraine to go after Biden, which, by the way, was absurd because even President Zelensky and President Poroshenko prior to him, the current president and the president prior to Poroshenko, stated that there was no leverage. There was no arm twisting. So you believe reports from Ukrainian journalists or a prosecutor pertaining to Hunter, but you don't believe the actual president of Ukraine and his predecessor? So they're all over the place. Democrats are all over the place. This is huge, ladies and gentlemen. Give me your thoughts below. This is enormous. Be here. Definitely be here at 9 p.m. Pacific. I'll start my live stream. We're going to have an epic live stream. Give me your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. 9 p.m. Pacific. Be here. If you want to support my voice long term, my Patreon is below. God bless George Papadopoulos, Carter Page. These people were set up and framed by Clinesmith. Carter Page was the first person set up, and then George Papadopoulos was set up and framed by Kevin Clinesmith. Unbelievable. And Papadopoulos had to face the consequences. Thank goodness it wasn't, it wasn't, this lengthy prison sentence. It was just 14 days in jail, but he shouldn't even have had 1 second incarcerated because he was set up and framed. And George Papadopoulos is one of the heroes in all of this. Carter Page is one of the heroes in all of this. Michael Flynn is one of the heroes in all of this. President Trump is a hero in all of this. He's going up against very corrupt people. The problem on the left is the following. They've given up whatever value system they claimed to uphold a long time ago. They're willing to get in bed with serpents and snakes and the most dastardly, nefarious people simply to go after Trump. And that ruins that. If this is a battle for the soul of the nation, sorry, I don't want Peter Strzok and Comey and Clapper and Brennan anywhere near my soul. Do you want them near your soul? Do you want Biden near your soul? I'd much rather have Trump. Okay, Biden, Tales from the Crypt Biden, who looks and acts like an exhumed body, is far more. President Trump is bringing home Americans and reversing U.S. foreign policy. Biden, and we had record low unemployment. And he signed the First Step Act. And just recently, he did an amazing thing. Diplomatic achievement that I'll talk about on H.A. Goodman's other channel. President Trump's a good president. And he's a good human being. When you compare him to Biden. Biden has had scandals and controversies long before they ever said President Trump did. You can look that up. Everything from a plagiarism scandal to, questions about Ukraine that were brought up in 2014. And then you have, issues. Did Trump destroy a country, an actual country? No. Biden did in Libya, along with President Obama and Clinton. So yeah, President Trump's much better human being. Much better human being. Give me your thoughts below. Be here 9 p.m. Pacific. And it's happening, people. It's pretty amazing. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you so very, very much. And subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. Be here tonight for the live stream.